Hello, in the name of Motovila Institute, we are a non-governmental institute from Slovenia, and our main aim is promotion of transnational and cross-sector cooperation in the culture and creative sectors. We are also Creative Europe Desk, national contact point for EU Creative Europe program. We are a member of On the Move, Culture Action Europe and Creative Europe Desk network. In cooperation with partners and international experts, we are organizing a professional training series entitled Beyond the Cultural Model. We offer new tools, skills and knowledge for the Slovenian culture and creative sectors. With today's webinar, we are going back to basics. We are going to talk about financial management of international projects. Enjoy the webinar, and if you want to know more about Motovila, go to motovila.si webpage.
We will talk about administration projects, about financial management, about financial reporting. Basically, the seminar will be divided in three parts. In first part, we will talk about project administration itself, about necessity of providing updates, communication with the donors, with the partners, following milestones and changes. We talked about that, about importance of indicators, qualitative, quantitative in the first seminar. Today we will continue with a little bit extensive explanation what need to be done and how. After that will be a short break reserved for your eventual questions and answer. We will continue with financial management scheme, how to monitor basically the budget, how to prepare plans, how to follow co-financing sources, simply to discuss about all aspects financial management during the project realization period. And the third part, it's related to financial reporting. So what need to be done before, during, and after preparation of final report. Simply what need to be prepared for audit, which must, in most European projects, you must have international auditor who will provide auditor's report for your final financial report. So let's start with the first part. Basic principle of projects management. Well, principle itself can be defined as some fundamental rule or concept. Therefore, the principle of project management are the fundamental rules that should be followed for the successful management of projects. There is no official list of principles for successful projects. However, here are a few principles I would suggest, or I'm usually suggesting to follow. First is try to have formal structure. Your project, it's important that the project have a formalized structure, including all processes, procedures, tools. Of course, you will try in need, you will try to access different tools and actions in order to complete the project. But if you ever start to try without the formalized structure of the books or on the knees, as we say in Czech Republic, you know how hard it can be to control it and provide it without attention that projects or action deserves. Project should have a project plan as well as a designed project team. This helps ensure it is prioritized and managed successfully. Goals and outcomes. It's important because without clear requirements and approval criteria, it will be very difficult to tell if a project success or not. It is connected with those indicators you should state before the project start. The most common factor behind failed projects is a lack of clear goals. Project requirements and assessment criteria should be all determined and documented at the very beginning of the project. What else? It's important to ensure that are reviewable and also recognizable by all partners and stakeholders, donors also, and including the target group representatives if it's applicable or needed. Roles and responsibilities. There are very different models which can be used for documenting or defining the roles and responsibility of everyone involved in a project. it's not about only team members, but also about partners, stakeholders outside of the primary project team. Why we are talking about hierarchy? Because it's important in the execution of projects, because it creates clear boundaries between the roles. You should know who is responsible for what and to whom must be reported or simply subordinated. Management of project change. Well, project is a live organism. It's changing all the time. And the project must have a well-defined scope to ensure that outcome meets target group's expectation, as we discussed in the goal section above. Without strong management, project could suffer and gradually lose the initial project idea. For example, team members of stakeholders or part of target groups to add additional places for projection of movies in our alternative distribution network. That's example from the first seminar. But if you don't carefully control changes, you could end up with a result which would cost twice what you expected, and it could be delivered, let's say, 6 months late. You don't want to do that, definitely. This is a risk which you cannot allow, and basically that's usually you cannot execute or run your projects in a bubble. They all face some risks, but after all, you must manage those risks, because those risks impact your projects. It can be good or bad. It can affect your resources, processes, technology, or whatever. But in order to minimize or eliminate the impact, that risk, it's important to be able to manage it. This includes identifying, evaluating, and monitoring risks, as well as deciding about action plans to be implemented if the risks occur. 6, it's a performance management baseline. Projects has typically 3 basic components: cost, schedule, and scope. Each of those components should have a baseline or plan that performance can be measured against. When these baselines are integrated, it's called a performance management baseline. This means that when you have a change in any of the components, its impact will be reflected in other 2 as well. So if you have a scope change, you can see how it impacts both the project schedule and cost, which allows you to better monitor the overall impact of changes to a project. It's also improved decision-making, as you can view the whole integrated picture and identify all impacts of potential decisions. And the last one is communication plan. All of you, I'm sure, when you are working in project management for a while, you may have heard saying that project management is 90% of communication. The success of project requires communication of project activities, risks, issues, and status, both within the project team and with other donors and stakeholders. Communications is important for a variety of reasons, including keeping donors and stakeholders engaged, coordinating tasks and schedules, what else? Identifying and resolving conflicts. There are many tools for project management depending on industry, area of work, but I wouldn't like to recommend to you anything specific. You can find it on net, and most of you probably are using some Trello or Asana or whatever web-based project management tools. But what is common for all of them, and very important for you, is a way of thinking about the project. Think smart and set your key performance indicators, which you should follow during the project realization and adjust them if there is a need. That's a key word. It doesn't matter what tool you use, find something which is most appropriate for you. That's simply your options. There's no general or the best tool. When we are talking about those key performance indicators, we are back again, continue what we said last time. I prepared just this slide to remind you importance of key performance indicators, why it's important to set those indicators, why to use it basically, because you will be able to measure and your performance and activities. You will be able to provide the all necessary answers to member of team, to donors, to whoever needs to know how to set or identify those project key performance indicators. I will use just indicators. It's easier for pronounce. You need to identify the indicators to help you learn about your target groups and what they want. To understand your project and objectives, translating your organization objectives into measurable goals, and then selecting indicators to each of these goals. Why I'm dissolving that now on that way? Because there's few steps you should be follow when you are identify your indicators. Don't make too many indicators. Choose 3 priority goals and don't try to have more than 3 indicators per one goal. Focus on linking indicators or measure to the goals are most directly supply the most evidence. Make definitely realistic and metric identification. Whatever you set, it must be measurable. Consult with your team members about that, about selection of those indicators, how work of your team members relates to company strategy or to project strategy, and able them to have a greater sense of commitment to meeting those objectives. You will be able to, or they will be, they should be better identified with the goal of the project. Use that SMART criteria. SMART goals are designed to provide a structure and guidance throughout the project. Each measure must be, as you see, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant to success the organization, so result-oriented, and time phase or time-bound, which means the value or outcomes are shown for predefined and relevant period of time. As I said, choose maximum 3 priority and do not add more metrics. Very often you might have a situation that you are pushed by your partners or donors or whoever that you must add some indicators. Try to resist. Indicators should be actively managed to be effective. Metrics must be critical to the operation or linked to improvement objectives. So that means that you can change those indicators during the time. Of course, the project environment and other factors are changing, so there is need, or they might be need for you to change or adjust those indicators. But when you do that, keep those indicators relevant and keep the overall number of indicators lean using SMART criteria. You can have more indicators, but think about that, why you are doing that. To have more numbers or to make something important to you for you to follow. We will talk about that in the next slide, because you must learn to use your data. When we are talking about indicators and data you set at the beginning and you are following, I will suggest you to create or use existing helpful tools which can quickly provide you with the information you need or you need to present. Use tables, line charts, bar charts, other whatever measurement tools to track indicators. Your dashboard will consolidate and automate the multiple data which makes your project or will show you your project's growth. You can see in my presentation that, or you will see in my presentation that I'm mostly using Excel. I'm a little bit old generation. When I worked with that, there were no web tools. Today, there is dozens of different dashboards, templates on the web, so you can find something. But you can create your own basically in Excel if you can choose data which you want to follow. When you properly design your dashboard, those indicators let you know if your activities or projects need maintenance or it's running on some peak performance or low performance or whatever. There are three main types of dashboards. I will just very shortly describe. It's a strategic, analytical, and operational. While these are the major categories or forms of dashboards, there will be likely instances when a hybrid or two types may be needed. For example, strategic and analytical. For my usual, I'm preparing strategic and analytical because I'm doing big finances. On the operational level, you will use or try to use dashboards when you are talking about project and you are talking with your project managers about following of those activities. No matter what type of indicators you are using, your managers and staff should be able to get answers to questions in real time and take action with all the data consolidated on one place. You can support different actions with your dashboards, but good indicators dashboard design should be, as you see, easy to read and understand. Data should be grouped logically and in categories, so visual environment enables to you or your presenters quick comprehension. Easy to update. When your project grows and conditions are changed, you should choose some intuitive platform or one you already used and you know that works with your system and workflow. It should use as a place for current status snapshots and historical trends. That means that you can also follow that in time. For example, I will show you how you can use your data about your organization from previous years to compare something which you need to stress now. It should be aligned to best practice around visual presentation. Shortly, that means less is more. So eliminate decoration, animations, and everything fancy. Data is crucial, and you need to see that. Of course, if you have spare time, you can put some pearls and do some nice animation, but it's really not necessary. Constructed to enable decisions to be made at a glance. Shortly, make no more than 6 or 7 objects of dashboard. Everything else, it's or put it on the next sheet. Maybe I can show you. I can show you the dashboard I prepared for you as an example. Ines, I would like to ask you to tell me about how it looks like on the screen.
We don't see the Excel yet, but yeah, now. Can you make it just a little bigger?
Just wait a second, I'm on my notebook and I must find the I prepared for you 4 examples. I must find the appropriate one. So KPI dashboard. Okay, I'm sorry. KPI dashboard, so this is something bigger.
It's okay. A ostali vidite v redu? Lahko nam tudi v chat napišete, če...
So if there is something which need to be explained or discussed, just write in chat. But what is about? This is a dashboard, and this here you can see data. So when you put, I will also put a little bit bigger. Is it okay?
Yeah.
So if you put your data, your relevant data which you want to follow, for example, I put here data about some 10 projects for organization, estimated budget, actual budget difference, which means where I can find some contingency or reserve or something, net expenses, income, and also I prepare here, it was for some presentation for the board of directors, debt to equity ratio. So I'm sorry, I need to close. Yeah. It can show you economic company financial leverage. This sheet is your data sheet where you put your data, actual data. You will change something, you will add something, and on the other dashboard you can see the total budget. Need to extend it a little bit more. Is it better now? So you can see budget for each particular project. You can see estimated, actual, also income, budget total. So you can see that you have some reserve, income total, expected, actual. So it will change anytime when you change those data, or when we got another project, or that project will be cancelled from some reason. So you will very fast can see actual situation. That's some simple economic analytical dashboard, which, for example, I'm using when I'm preparing some reports for my board of directors or whoever who needs to be informed about health status, economic status of the whole organization. Here, what I'm talking about, that's historical trends from 2010 to 2019. So you can easily see how you can see debt and equities for all that period. So that's an example of some dashboard and use of dashboard, how you can very fast can see the situation in any projects. It will be changing time, actualized basically very often during the project period of time, and we will talk about that a little bit later. So this was the first part of my presentation. I will share again the PowerPoint.
Thank you, Bojan. Can I have the first question? You were talking about platforms. Are you using only Excel? Do you advise using Excel, or are you using also some payable versions of platform for following the project financial and administration?
As I say, I'm a little bit old school, so I'm developing my own Excel sheets and everything. It depends how you are able to work with Excel. If you are experienced or intermediary user of Excel, I would suggest Excel, because we must have Excel, everybody, because of the donors. Not because we are like Microsoft or don't like Microsoft, but it's tool. And when I was working, let's say 15 years ago, there were no online tools at all for project management. Mm-hmm. So now I saw in some companies Asana and Trello, and they're using that very efficiently, I must say. But it depends on wishes or simply what I will present today. Everything was done in Excel.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And we have another question about concrete examples of key performance indicators. Can you give us an example of, for example, 3 key performance indicators for a specific goal, maybe based on a concrete project you worked on?
Okay, so let's say, for example, today you will see a project which was realized by Institute of Documentary Film with 7 partners. Goal is setup of alternative distribution network for documentary films. So that's the goal of the project. The general goal or call for proposals was promotion of European works online. So this project or goal of the project is under the under the priority it's eligible. So we need to set up the typical or concrete goals to be achieved in order to support that call for proposals. So that means that you must set up, for example, we have 7 countries. In each country, we want to have 14 movies in distribution. Those 14 movies must be presented in 20 places in each country, and every place you must have, let's say, 20 projections. So those are indicators when you are planning your budget, when you are planning. Now we will talk in the second part of the presentation, we will talk about those planning. So this is something which you write in the application form. So you need to quantify and those indicators in order to be monitored. So of course, during the project period of time, you will see that, for example, in Croatia or in Romania, there are no cinemas, or there are no, the documentary films are not presented in cinemas at all. So places is higher, so you need to adjust your indicators and simply to monitor them in order to see is it in correlation with the budget. Is it enough, or I can continue? I can talk about those indicators very long time, but I see that we are already 25 minutes in the presentation, so maybe
later.
Yes.
Okay.
But be as much concrete as you can. Simply, you should know, as I told in the first seminar, existence of your project is not enough. With your project, you need to achieve something. So in case that you set up that goal, so you can see at the end of the project, you can say, okay, was it worth? Is it real good value for money or not? In case that you spend the same money and you achieve, let's say, 50% of goals, so something was wrong. And you should react before you realize, or after you realize that something is going wrong. You should adjust your indicators or change for prolongation of the project, or somehow that's that risk. You should see that there is a risk, and you should be able to manage that problem or situation.
Yeah, thank you for that. We're always advising organizations that they have to be in contact with their project officers if they're doing the European projects, with their project officers in Brussels, because they need to know what's going on. They need to inform them about the changes. They need to confirm the changes. So yeah, that's why it's great. This is
that reminder when I put here at the end, inform the donor during the implementation of the project about all updates about the project, important events, invite them, show them that you exist, and simply it helps in during the evaluation process, during the monitoring process. Inform about, of course, every problem encountered and any change in the organizations, and of course, success stories are very important. Mm-hmm. You must sell what you are doing. Don't forget that. It's not enough just to make some Facebook status or something like that. Do that as much as possible. This is important. What you are doing is important. So you must present yourself and your actions and activities.
Thank you. If there are no questions, we can continue with the presentations. No questions.
No questions. You are so quiet, audience. Okay. So we are going to the second part when we are talking about the project financial management. Usually when I'm presenting live on site, I'm starting with a question to the audience, to my quite nice audience. Does anybody know what are the main steps of or in project financial management? So let's see the definition. In order to manage project resources properly and achieve the project objective, financial management brings together, that's a process which brings together planning, budgeting, accounting, financial reporting, internal control, auditing, procurement, disbursement, and physical performance of the project. So that's a nice list. But even people see that or read it, Very often they are underestimate role about a strong and solid financial management. Don't do that, please. I have never seen a successful project that does not have strong financial management. However, I understand even it is your business, your work, your projects, you can't know and you cannot do it all. So if calculation, Excel, crunching the numbers simply is not your strength, either hire or outsource to someone who is an expert. Then make sure they deliver frequent and reliable information and advice that you can use to manage your projects, organization, business, financial position, whatever. But you need, again, to have data, appropriate data, and be able to make a decision. Without proper data and prepared data, you cannot do that. Financial manager, director, CFO, whatever is the name of that role, is simply, I consider it as a glue that brings everything and everyone together. In that role, you have the collaborator and the alignment person with the other executives and managers to make sure that there are no gaps in strategy, in decision making, simply in execution. No one else can really touch all the parts of the enterprise or company in a way that a financial manager can. Maybe it's a glorification, maybe it sounds like that, but really I'm sure that financial manager have a better knowledge about the project than simple project manager. Even the scope of the project is something which project manager very often do much more than financial manager, but from my experience, financial manager has a much better overview of general activities of the organization and project. I was consulting some time ago, maybe last month, budget for one bigger project, and I realized that applicant did not put financial management in the project budget at all. And we are talking about 1 million euros project. So it's really sometimes not tricky, but as I say, underestimating can you cost much more than you expect and want. You know how it goes. You are a few months out from a deadline and your team isn't anywhere close to the finishing the project. You are quickly running out of budget and time and you are starting to stress. Should you tell the donors and ask for change or wait a little bit longer? Well, you are not alone, at least, as this situation happens to more than 45% of all large-scale projects. For many, this reflects to project's timeline and to the final product or project, with 56% of project delivering less value than anticipated. The only way how you can avoid that or simply stop this from happening is to make a cost management plan. This is something which it's a method of planning and execution of a project budget, basically. You must complete your project on time and within the limits of approved budget. This is must do. However, with the proper cost management plan in place, both of those things will fail, costing you and your organization sometimes tremendously. What's more, project success is directly linked to cost management, as cost is one of the primary determining factors for the success or failure of the project. So how do you create a cost management plan? Typically is made up of 4 processes. First of them is resource planning. While resource management is in place to plan and allocate the resources needed for each stage of a project, resource planning looks specifically at the costs associated with each of these resources. Starting with a resource plan, project managers will typically use work breakdown structure to show the project and its deliverables or activities in some kind of hierarchy from the most important to least. Basically, it is the composition of the total scope of the project, of the work. From the project name, imagine that you simply divide it to tasks, to subtasks, work packages, to the single activities. The second one is cost estimation. It's a process of approximating the cost associated with each of the resources required. Cost estimating forecasts the costs of completing the project with the defined scope. That's iterative. That means it's designed to change as the project changes. This stage uses many different estimation techniques. However, this process only makes sense if every last project detail has been mapped out, including all scopes and deliverables. For projects lacking fine print, less accurate cost estimation techniques will still be available during this stage. The third is budgeting. Cost estimates might have felt you like you mapped out your budget already, but really you just mapped out the blueprints, the sketch of for your budget. Your budget will be a little bit more precise by this measure and will enable the project to truly succeed. Budgets are formed and approved after the estimation phase and are typically released for the project in series of phases depending on the project's regress. This will help the project reach its milestones within each budgetary phase rather than trying to match an overall project budget. Cost control, this one is simple. You measure your project's value performance against your total cost and timeline. This will help provide a benchmark throughout the project process. Good project managers will carefully monitor the cost of their projects alone or in correlation or in cooperation with the financial manager. This includes watching to see where actual costs has varied from estimated costs. You should also inform the stakeholders, donors and partners, if you have it, of all cost discrepancies that vary too much from the budgeted cost. That's how you are working in time during the project period of time to avoid those misunderstandings at the end of the project. If there are any changes to scope or unexpected risks which could have or might have an impact of the approved budgets, the project manager will need to review the level of impact and take respective correction actions if or as needed. Ultimately, your cost management plan will help you both to plan for the project costs and manage your project costs throughout the project's life cycle. As your project is underway, your project costs or expenses will be documented throughout the project so that your project can stay within the budget. So if you make a proper budget and set up the mechanism of cost control, you will be able to stay within the budget and to react to changes which will happen. Definitely it will happen because, as I said, everything is changing during the project period of time. Before I show you some examples, how it looks in one bigger project, let's talk about some practical advices. Some projects have a large budget and require precise and in-time management and tracking. Other projects have very simple or don't have a budget or reporting component at all. I can imagine a lot of small grants which just wanted to see invoices and bank statements, and that's enough, no financial report. But when you do have project finances to manage, think about those simple steps. At the very beginning, try to create, or you should create, code scheme for reporting of your project based on budgetary headings and subheadings, so the most comprehensive budget. Very often it is the budget of the main or the biggest donor you have. Based on information what costs can be covered from co-financing sources due to different limitations, you should prepare estimation what will be covered from which sources and when. It is important to do that in order to provide the right information to the accounting department, wherever single cost should be accompanied with the appropriate codes in order to be clearly identified in the accounting. Try to get regular monthly reports from your accounting system. Import of data to the reporting software will provide you information about all types of costs as well as about budgetary spending. Communication about your actual cost with your partners is also important. Simply to have that information. For example, in this project, we set up bi-monthly or quarterly, I don't remember, information is from partner is required. So they were sending those the list of costs every 2 or 3 months to the coordinator in order to see that costs are occurring and simply they are paid, that project is running. Report the true status of your spending and your forecasted spending. I think it's very clear. And if you are at risk of going under budget or over the budget, be sure to manage expectation so you will be able to avoid any surprise you can have. Now I'm switching again to Excel, and it will be something which we will talk next few minutes. Example of monitoring of costs. And also it's beginning of preparation of your final report and audit, the preparation for the audit. Just wait a second. Okay, I lost that file. Be patient a little bit. I just need to close that sharing completely.
We can invite all the attendees to... Yeah, we can...
Ines, please discuss.
We can.
I will prepare that file.
Okay. Yeah, we can invite all the attendees to ask questions under chat, or those who are more experienced, they can share their do's and don'ts while preparing the financial plan and while reporting. So, or if you have any additional questions for Bojan, or would you like to add, what would you do differently when, preparing a second, third, fourth project? So, and everybody's invited to share. Is it okay, Bojan? You found the Excel?
Yes, I need to close all my Excels. I have 4 examples, and I must close all Excels and open it again in order to be available to sharing in.
Okay.
We tried that everything before the seminar.
It was working, yeah.
As usual.
But this is always like that with the technology.
Not always. All the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so.
If this would be a real-time event, we would be drinking coffee now and waiting for the presentation, but yeah.
Okay, so you remind me that I can also prepare a cup of coffee for myself. just to start that Excel sheet.
Yeah, maybe Excel needs more coffee.
Yeah. Punch it. Okay.
We're receiving a couple of questions, so yeah, but we will be answering them after the Excel presentation.
If those questions are some short, I can talk to you or try to answer. I will stop presentation for a while, just in order.
Okay. One question is how to deal with underspending or with overspending.
No,
if you have any cases.
Talk about that. Sharing.
Okay. We saw the Excel, but it disappeared now.
I see. The Windows was closed. I don't know why. Once again.
Okay. No. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So
can you make it a little bit bigger, or?
Yes, of course. So I just need to extend it and bigger numbers.
Okay.
So what we are talking about? Create code scheme. So that was the first thing. So you can see a code scheme for all donors, for all activities you have. You must create something which is appropriate to your accounting, or the most appropriate to your accounting. But it's important to be able to identify every donor with some code which you will use. Why it is important? Because in data which you will get from your accounting, you will have some ID from accounting, the number of that invoice, the date, company ID, amount in the accounting, amount in currency, important because of the exchange rate of euro. But here is a code, and you must divide all data you have in your accounting and to put it to different centers. So you know when you select, for example, 905. So you will see that it will be paid from grant, from main donor, etc. So when you put 12, you will see that it will be paid from, say, subsidy 1. All those costs will be paid for that. This is export from accounting, but it's very unpleasant or not possible to work with that. That's why we are doing and preparing that code scheme following the budget of the biggest donor. When you put your, is it visible?
Yeah.
When you put your budget, so this is estimated budget and this is budget spending, you can see. You can very easily in Excel to create export from that data sheet to the total budgetary spending, and to see how much of the budget is spent or overspent. Usually, now I will try to answer shortly or to the question from the audience, what to do with the overspending or underspending. It depends. Usually in European project, you have some limit between budget chapters or budget sub-chapters. It's about 10% or something like that. It's different from project to project, but it's not so big deal when you are staying in the same. You see here, we have on project manager, we spend 133%, but in total we are about 100%. So it's not, but we save money here. So basically we stayed about 100% here on the total heading 1 personal cost. So it's about you, how you deal with that, but definitely inform yourself, inform donor during the project period, during the realization of project. about potential change, or definitely if you will add some new person here, new project coordinator or new subheading, you must do that. Read your guidelines. I'm sure that everything is written there. But basically, you can see where you have savings. Simply, you save a lot of travel and subsistence costs. So this is a situation when you can say to the donor, I would need more money to, I don't know here, to technical support. Yeah. So it's not about percentages, it's also about final amounts. If you have, if you spend 3,000 or 1,600 instead of 800, it's not so big deal, it's just 800 euros. But simply be very careful about management stuff, about personal stuff, and also about subcontracting stuff. This is total. Mm-hmm. Maybe we will now add also preparation of the final report together, because this is very, very close. During the project period of time, you need to put all those data, to take data from your organization, from partner. Simply, this is situation at the very end of the project. I decided to show you this because we have a lot of data for all project period of time. But also, when we are doing with partners, some partner projects, you need to also to follow how your partners are dealing or being with the budget. So, is it visible now, Ines, please, or is it too small?
It's okay. It's okay.
For example, here you see that we are doing with the total estimate, but here we have presentations for every single partner. So simply, this is everything export from that data you have from your organization. That's why we are talking about communication. You need to get data from your partners during the project to react to potential changes or requests for changes. That's something which cannot be avoided. Simply that projection of partners, what they thought at the very beginning of projects, they didn't know. In the same situation, maybe you are, that when you are applying for a project, you are applying in time where simply you have no clue how it will look like year or year and a half in the future when project will be realized, really. So that's why I'm talking about collecting the data, integration all data to one sheet, which is basically something which you will later provide to your auditor. When we are talking about those practical advices, if you remember, we talked that you need to check all those costs, are they eligible or not eligible. So this is something which, when we are talking about your organization, it's applied to a partner, but just to be easier for us, we will use just, for example, those which are just for your organization. So every single invoice or expense, you must check if it's eligible according to the rules of the main donor or rules or other donors. For example, some donation will pay only, let's say, graphic costs and web costs. And you must plan in your project that if you have those type of costs, it will be paid by that donor. So that means that you will adjust a specific code of that donor. So donor number 32, who is, I don't know, 32 is municipality grant, will pay that cost. You will provide your accounting when you get. Maybe I will repeat something you are already doing, but it's important maybe for you who are not, who don't have that payment scheme in your organization. Every single invoice must be accompanied with some notice or paper to the accounting when you put the codes for your accounting in order to be identified, as we said. When you send that to accounting, for example, I suggest you on a monthly basis to get report from accounting. You can see here import from accounting up here, and you will import new data from accounting, which will rewrite that, and you will get fresh information about spending. In case that you find something is not good, or you must divide, you decided that you must divide this invoice, you wanted to divide it to 60,000 crowns from one source and 22 or 12,000 crowns from another source. You will mark that to your accounting and send data. Find mark cells, export those data, and send to your accounting to make some adjustment. So this is why I love Excel, because everything basically is possible if you have enough imagination. So you need to set up your monitoring tool. I'm showing something which I'm using. For my purposes, it's good, but it is upgrading every time, because I love to improve those things as much as possible. So this is something which you are getting regular reports on your accounting system. You are updating your budgetary spending. You are reacting to any possible changes or budget or activities. Somebody said that we will not have projections on in that country at all. So we need to put that for change of the budget and to move that to, I don't know, to advertisement or something like that. So those things you will see here. You will see here, or you will see here on individual partners when you are monitoring a partner is in Slovakia, for example. There are gaps. This is about communication. So all those practical advices I said a few minutes ago, prepare and issue a claim form with every invoice, to prepare your accounting, to put appropriate codes, get reports from your accounting system, communicate about costs with partners, and report the true status of the project. This is something which you can see here, summary budget. This is budget division. All partners, how we are spending personal costs, operating costs, reporting costs. Following also direct costs, indirect costs. Those limits are set in every project. How much percentage or how much money you can spend in direct costs, so you are following when, if you make proper formatting, so you can see red numbers very nice. And this is something which you are following. Also, co-financing. Let's say that we have some grants and division of that grant between the partners. But here are partners from all states. They are co-financing, so this is something also which can be read from that date. So this is something I will stop now. I will stop now and go back. We will go back to this sheet. After a small break, I need to get a little bit water.
Okay.
Stop share and share screen. This desktop share. So I think that we should be back on PowerPoint, correct?
Yeah, we are. Thank you.
Okay, so
you can grab.
We are on your questions and answer. Before that, reminders. Important is to have and secure strong and reliable financial management team. Definitely. If you are not able to do that, as I said, invest your money at the beginning. It will save your money at the end. Set up and use proper cost management plan and manage your project costs throughout the course of the project life cycle. After the planning, set up some kind of tool for monitoring. In case that you already have some tool, feel free to use it, but you need to have information, right information at time. This is crucial, to have information at time. And third, from my experience in different organizations, that's creation of code scheme. based on budgetary headings and subheadings is very useful because you will be able to export. The same situation is like with small donors or with the co-financing donors. You saw that we had 6 or 7 donors, every of them, especially public money, state subsidies and municipality grants needs also to be reported. So from that list of costs, you can also export all list of costs paid by subsidy or grant, and also to have representation of total grants, total project costs, which all of them need to see. So this is end of the second part. I deserve coffee.
Yeah, thank you, Bojan. So Bojan was talking about an ideal plan, about an ideal project life cycle, but we all know that sometimes things can go wrong, or there are many risks occurring. Can you tell us more on concrete examples? What can go wrong? So you prepare a plan, you arrange everything with your partners, but still there is like this corona crisis or something else is comes up. So
Everything
do you have
can go
any?
wrong. That's the first rule, and you should be prepared on that. First of all, you prepare the biggest, let's say media project, which provide you 60% of, which cover 60% up to 60% of the grant in European projects. So you got a grant. Now this is a call for proposals was in March. In August you got a grant decision, and you need to secure co-financing in 40%. So Corona came, matching funds are not, so you will not have co-financing for the next year. So you need to search for different donors to cover that gap, because you know that matching funds will not happen, or will get, let's say, 10 to 20%. So this is first problem, lack of co-financing, which is the worst problem you can have, because that means that you cannot realize your project. Most of organizations are NGOs, so non-profit organizations, and simply cannot generate enough revenues in order to co-finance projects from its own sources. The second risk is in a partner's project, lost some partner at the very beginning of project or during the project. So you need to negotiate with the donor what must be done, because as coordinator you are guarantee of the project, so you need to simply overtake that portion of activities or budget, or say that you want to let's say make a big project change. So that's the second risk. The third risk is that simply the situation of your target groups is changed, or situation, the main goal which you wanted to contribute with the realization of your project is changed. So political situation change of your target, or situation of your target group is changed. So this is the third risk, or something which I can, let's say now, very, very fast. But there is a lot of other risks which also can be taken into consideration. Lack of your team members, or lost your financial manager from some reason. So personal changes. It's a fourth. Or we can continue. There's a lot of risk, and all of that must be presented before the project start, or during the preparation of the project, when you are doing that risk management. Even it's not obligatory, it's important to have identified all risks and to somehow to deal with them. Okay, so you say that your financial manager, she is pregnant, so she will not be able to participate in the project in let's say 9 of 12 months. She will not be available, or will be available for a certain period of time. So that is a risk, and I will solve, and it's a small risk because I have a strong financial department which can continue with her supervision online, which they can continue and they can deliver their activities. So all those risks must be identified and suggested some kind of solution. That's a typical risk management scheme which the most of you should know during the preparation of your project or running your organization.
Thank you. Another question. Do you miss any good and simple rules stated in different calls for proposals, including a Creative Europe, that could lead applicants to better financial management? So, you know,
there are no universal rule. What I'm trying now to teach you, everything I'm telling you today or the week ago, all of that are situations which I saw or lived in past. So this is all good things I can suggest are here. Basically, there is no general rules. Especially, you will not see. Maybe I misunderstand the question. Can you send again?
Maybe the question was more for the donors. So
louder, please. I cannot hear you.
Maybe the question was more for the donors. So you know, if they can prepare, you know, more concrete rules or better rules, so that the applicants can prepare better financial, so be better financially or prepared, or
yes, okay.
Yeah.
From my point of view, creative media rules are very straight. What I don't like, and I'm not the only person, is that there are no unified budget for all creative media projects. But we discussing that with the media for years. Even in the same grant scheme, which is creative media, not grant scheme, program as creative media, in every grant scheme is a different budget. You can find different budget in market access, in festivals, in training, in promotion of video online. This is something which can be upgraded. But those rules, as it is, they are very, very straight and readable. I wouldn't say that could be easier. Okay, of course, requirements can be lower. We'll talk about that, especially when we are talking about travel and substance costs, which is sometimes it's really they need too much details. Even I understand that all those costs must be related to project activities, not to company activities, when we are talking about travel and accommodation and per diems. But you will see now in next slides during the preparation of final report how detailed it must be done. And it's, for example, this is something which may be upgraded in order to help applicants or beneficiaries, but rules as it is, I see very straightforward.
Another question: how to manage lump costs if funder uses this system?
Lump sum is usually allowed only in overheads costs in media projects. And I am trying always to say to all my clients, try to be as much concrete as you can, and don't use lump sums. That's my don't use lump sums. Don't buy computers and techniques during the depreciation rules. And third, I had one more. I forgot. Three golden rules. Simply, I will remember later, maybe.
Okay, so we will talk about 3 golden rules at the end, probably. If there are no questions, anybody else? No, we can continue with the presentation.
Okay. So now we will talk about preparation of the final financial report. Basically, this not rules, but suggestions. Carefully study, again, guidelines and all explanatory notes and recommendation from donor. Usually, you will find important information with some note to the financial report form. Some of that information is copied from guidelines, but some are not in guidelines. I have never understood how they choose what to copy, what don't copy, but simply you must read both documents and complement the information. Try to use proper and actual forms and check their integrity. I'm saying that usually you are using or getting grant year per year, and you use the same form with the same formulas as it was last year. Sometimes there is a difference, and sometimes also when I'm saying check the integrity, sometimes though there are mistakes in that budget forms or report forms. So check everything, because it can cost enormous amount of money. Check that financial report structure respect the heading structure of the budget in the grant agreement. The same situation. In case that you add something to the budget, those costs, or add some lines in the budget, those costs can be considered as ineligible immediately. Because you didn't agree that discussed it with the donor before, so it will be 90% cases it will be declared as ineligible. All additional costs which are not present in the budget in the grant agreement. Collect and prepare all list of costs exported from accounting for your organizations and from all partners involved. You need to prepare Excel sheets in the same format or the format you required from your partners. Try to imagine that you are doing project with partners with 7 countries, all of them talking different language. So, of course, they are communicating in English, but simply accounting documents in Bulgarian are very nice to decipher. Or Romanian when you don't have a clue about that language. So you need at least to have in the same format, in the same sheet, so you can export it and to see what can be done later. So merge all list of costs into one data sheet, which will be basis for the auditor's control. So this is something we already talked. This is import to our data sheet, to our budget reporting, which is basically the first step of our final report. Data from that sheet I already showed you will be translated in its final form. It will be translated to the final financial report. I would like again to show you something related to that data sheet, how it could look. It's again about you. So list of costs. Let's say again to share some Excel file. Now it's working and cooperating nicely. So this is list of costs. Is it visible, or I can?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So there is 3 sheets here. I put instructions, list of costs empty, and list of costs final. So, for example, all of our partners, 7 of them, got instructions to the financial settlement. What need to be inserted? So each column here you can see transaction numbers, original number of document, transaction date, transaction type, cash, bank, name of supplier, cost description, amount, currency, and total amount. All is described here. What needs to be done? It's about communication again. Describe exactly what you want. Give your partner complete information. You will communicate them on a monthly or 2-monthly or quarterly basis about this, most probably with his accountant department or financial department. Those people may not be familiar with the project. So they need to have exact information what needs to be done. that list of costs for all of them is prepared. Simply, all of them must have accounting in its own currency. So you set for them appropriate exchange rate according to the rules applied during the call for proposals. Simply, all those instructions and everything is here. They have that in their contracts. They have in contracts or agreements with you, with your organization. But try to make that as simple as possible to speed up processes. Because at the end, you must get from all of them, let's say one of them, for example, those are creations. Okay, so you need to have all that kuna invoices somehow translated or exchanged to euros according to the available exchange rate, put in the budget. So this is something which you must get from them in order to get and to prepare what we saw before. I don't have it again. Something is wrong with that, probably with that sheet. With that budgetary spending report, I need to open it again. So this is one thing you need to prepare a list of costs. And the second thing is when we are talking about that travel, details travel, which sometimes it's because it's really.
Bojan, we lost you a little bit.
This is the latest requests. Yes.
We lost you. The connection was bad for a minute. So can you repeat the?
Okay. So when we are talking about travel and substance costs, following this is also something which you need to prepare when you are preparing final report. Very often, in a different extent, this is the last request from the Brussels. So this is much more complicated and detailed than it was before. So I can expect that it will be also used by other agencies, but I don't know. So for every single travel, you need to put all the data per person, per travel, simply to provide all this. It was introduced last year for the first time. Usually, you should put just accommodation list, but now it's a travel accommodation. This is a sheet prepared by our colleagues in Brussels, and it is how it looks. When you put together everything. So simply you must put the date, the plane or train, bus, car, price in euros, budget, transaction number of days, per diems. So you need to do a lot of extra calculations, which is very time consuming, especially when you have 7 partners. So this is something which need to be prepared during the preparation or before the final preparation of final report. You need to calculate all of that and to find that, to support that with all data from accounting, to support that with your original invoices and bank statements for your organizations, and for copies of invoices from the organizations of partners. So I'm switching back to the presentation. Are we there?
Yes.
So what is important when you are preparing the final financial report? Those informations on next few slides for auditors and for preparation of final reports are very general and following usually all those rules, but these things are some mistakes, or you should avoid those simple mistakes. For example, a lot of reports don't have header section, and you will get that report back, and you will postpone the payment of the final installment for at least 2 weeks or month because of that stupid thing. Any conversion into euro shall be made in accordance with provisions of the grant agreement, if, of course, those grants have some costs incurred in other currencies. Don't forget that all declared costs must be eligible and have been incurred with a period of eligibility. This is a crucial thing. A lot of organizations are paying invoices after the eligibility period, which is usually project period of time. So some of invoices or some of costs are allowed to be paid later, but try to avoid as much as possible. Pay only those things which by law or by internal or accounting rules must be paid after. For example, payments usually are paid, let's say, 5 or 10 days after the end of the month, according to accounting laws of specific countries. But don't pay large amounts of invoices or big invoices in last week, in last 2 weeks. This is something which is always makes attention to the auditors. Why you are spending so much money at the end of the project? So you need to declare that. The cost must be actual cost, that means must correspond to payments made by the beneficiary and substain to supporting documents. That's clear enough. Overheads costs should be presented as a lump sum, which may not exceed some percentage of the total direct eligible costs. Usually it's 7%, sometimes maybe it's more. In some states, subsidies are so 10 to 15%, which is very nice. Not often to see. Budget transfer between categories are also limited to certain percentage, do you know that? And make sure that financial report is signed by the statutory legal representative. It should be the same person who signed a contract. So this is some general information, and we are moving to the audit. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the creative media project, but mostly in all European projects, also in Visegrad projects, which are financed from Visegrad Fund, the audit is a must-have situation. Well, the auditors should obtain a signed copy of the grant agreement, all its annexes and other relevant information. Please do not forget, or let's say particular attention must be paid to the description and action and the budget, because those two things must be totally actual in case that you ask for some project change that usually is described in the project description on the project budget. And of course, the second thing which auditor must see is the final report, which always must include a narrative and the financial section. Don't think that you can provide to the auditor just financial, because in order that they can declare and confirm that those costs are eligible, they must know that those activities has also delivered. Auditor will verify that the budget in the financial report corresponds to the budget of the grant. So particular attention must be paid on the eligibility period of the grant and project totally. Beneficiary must provide to auditor access to all documents concerning technical and financial management of the project and obtain all accounting documents necessary to enable the auditor to control or to verify costs incurred by co-beneficiaries or project partners. That's your responsibility as a coordinator. That's not a partner responsibility. You are a signature of the grant agreement, so that's all your thing. All copies or all documents must be originals or for your organization and copy for partners. Basically, we are saying that all costs must be justified by a relevant supporting document, must be incurred during the implementation period in compliance with subcontracting and procurement rules and converted in euro according to rules applied for a grant. Here you should prepare also those hotel invoices and restaurant receipts, or provide calculations of daily allowances, whichever is appropriate. That means that you should provide reconciliation or calculation showing how daily rates were calculated from the payroll information also. Prepare all bank statements, that's clear. Secure presence of financial department members. This is something which I suggest, especially external accountant. If your accountant is external delivered by external company, so be sure that accountant is present in case that auditors will ask for some questions which you are not able to answer, of course, because you are not accountant. And the last page, pluses and minuses, or what are good and what bad examples. Missing invoices, supporting evidence proof of payments. First mistake, if you cannot provide that, your audit will last more than 1 or 2 days, which is usual audit. Missing timesheet for personal and wrong calculation of daily salary. If you have employees, so you need to provide pay slips in case that your member teams are invoicing, so you must have timesheets. Also for lecturers or some external experts, they should have provide timesheets. It's simply a rule. Costs incurred outside the eligibility period, we talk about that, try to avoid it as much as possible. Costs should be paid during the project eligibility period. Subcontracting, missing proof of best value for money, depending on local laws or internal rules, how much the amount you set for subcontracting procedure in your organization. Missing proof that activities are related to the project. That's obvious. Best practices. This is something I put. It's not obligation, but consider having a specific bank account. If you are able to identify your costs, which you should be if you put right codes, so it's not necessary. For example, I prefer to have one account where we got those subsidies and one normal account, so we are dealing between accounts. It's not good to have payments from the same account where you have your subsidy or grant. Check the invoice correctly addressed to the beneficiary entity. Link clearly the invoice with the project. Organize a purchase payments procedure and define segregation of duty and key internal financial controls. The last thing is very often controlled by auditors. It's so-called rule of 4 eyes, not 2 and 2, but 2 persons should see every invoice, and in some cases it's recommended that 2 persons provide also payments. So this is end, hour and a half, that's okay. So time for a question and answer related to financial reporting, and also to any kind of questions you might have. Just few reminders. Prepare detailed list of costs as you already work with during preparation of the final report. So you are doing that basically all the time. As much as you work during the project, so your work at the end during the preparation will be easier. Secure access to all documents concerning the technical and financial management of the project. That's logical. prepare bank statements for project period and be able to identify payments of particular invoices. You should help sometimes you should help auditors. Usually they find everything, even more than you expect, but you should be helpful. Consider auditors as your partners. Really, they are not your auditor company. They should find something. Even we have our internal jokes when I'm audited. For years, they managed to find every time something. It's a small thing, but I'm really satisfied because that means that they got through everything and simply helped me that my reports will be successful. Secure presence of financial department members, if applicable. That's a crucial thing. Make your team, it's a teamwork. So put together your heads and prepare yourself for the audit. So this is everything I had to say. So it's real time for your questions. Feel free.
Maybe the first question can be about the audit. We as the Creative Eurodesk, we often receive a question, how much does the auditor cost? How much do we have to plan for the auditor?
It depends. It depends on the auditor. Some of them are charging a percentage of grant. I was working on some audits with Slovenian partners and prepared some for Slovenian organizations, and I realized that Slovenian auditors are much more expensive than Czech auditors. So there is no simply if you had, I don't know, in Slovenia I suppose that also there is a big four of audits at Deloitte and Price Waterhouse, etc. It's not necessary to get those giants to get your audits. Your audit must be certified in Slovenia, and simply I have cooperation with five auditors companies here in Czech Republic, and I don't want to suggest the name. It's about my clients to get our audit company, which they are corresponding or cooperating. So about price, for me, it's also difference between a single project and a multi-beneficiary project. Because in this case, I show you those auditors, this audit lasts 2.5, maybe 3 days. To control all 7 partners, you have some, it depends how many invoices you have to control, how many payments, contracts and everything. So just imagine that every partner can bring some few hundred documents. So copies, all of that is printing. So they are sitting, they're a team of 3 of them. So it's hard to say, is it enough or not enough, but it depends on the project. Okay. It's negotiable, basically.
We're advising the same. You mentioned before that working with big or smaller companies regarding the audit, we are always advising that you need to check if the auditor has experience with the cultural sector. They need to know how the system operates, and then it's easier for organization and the auditor to cooperate. And maybe sometimes we also advise to involve your auditor before. In between the project implementation?
It's not necessary.
Not necessary, okay.
It's not necessary. It's about you. You know what you need to provide, what you must provide to audits. Auditors are not obliged, and simply they cannot, they are very, very busy people. And simply we agreed, for example, I have audit of one project I'm preparing for the next week. And we set that date in February, before the corona. We set that date for 24th of June. So simply, even if I would have them to discuss with them something, I don't have anything to discuss because they have rules and procedures which they must follow, those set by donor, and simply auditors are professionals who will come, control everything I prepare. in case that I don't have something, I must provide it. So that's the division of that role. So I cannot imagine why should I ask auditor to see them before the control.
Okay. So now we can go to staff costs or personnel costs. There's one question: how do you calculate the daily rates? And can you estimate how much time is needed weekly, monthly, for a financial manager to keep records and prepare everything for, I don't know, half a million euro worth project with partners, international partners? And another question regarding timesheets. This is all connected to this personnel cost. How do you have any recommendation which system of timesheets to use? Because you have experience as a desk that some organizations are using really complicated timesheets for their staff to follow the work and everything. Any questions in one pack, or is it okay?
I must ask you to
repeat.
Say thing louder, because I cannot hear you properly.
Aha, okay.
The last was about timesheets, complicated timesheets, and the first one.
The first one was
about personal costs.
Yeah, how do you calculate daily rates, personal costs, daily salary?
Okay, so. First question, daily rate. If we are talking about media projects, you can find that in guidelines how daily rate is calculated. It's 360 days minus vacations, minus holidays, minus everything else, which is calculated, and it's maximized to 220 days per person. And be careful if you more projects at the same time. So those 220 days. Yes, Ines, you wanted to say something?
We just lost you for a bit. So, but I think that.
Okay, so 220 days is the limit set by the Commission. So be careful in case that you have few projects in realization at the same time. So that means that you, as a project coordinator, if you are figuring in both projects, so you cannot, your total time is 220 days, so you need to divide it between those two projects. You cannot be presented in two projects per 220 days. This is something which is set by the Commission. But to calculate the daily rate, it depends on your rules. And auditors will calculate also, or will check that daily rate of your manager or position in your organization is calculated according to usual amount in time and place. So simply, if usual amount for project manager payment in Slovenia is, I don't know, whatever, 1,000 euros, so you cannot put 10,000 euro and calculate daily rate from 10,000 euro. So as everything else, it must be a place, it must be a price in time, in place, usual in time, in place. Timesheets. Timesheets you are doing when you have invoicing of your internal, let's say, workers, not employees. You must have your internal rules, financial rules, so you must follow that. In case that you have some external lecturers who are you paying as on the basis of external expert, so you can provide whatever timesheet you want, basically, because that external person can provide you with timesheet. For example, I'm sending you an invoice, and I'm sending you, okay, I spend whatever 10 hours on preparations and 2 hours on presentation, so it is my timesheet. But if you are paying your workers or people engaged for your project from your organization, so you are basically you must follow your internal rules. So timesheets, it depends how you set it. It's the same like obligations to have procurement process. If you set it high enough to avoid it, you will be controlled by the auditor that you are following your internal rules, and of course, Slovenian rules about public procurement. I would rephrase it: how to avoid that your partner don't provide you with some false information about some invoices. All of partners must sign agreement with us, and basically everything what is the one of the attachment to the agreement between coordinator and partner is also the grant agreement with the Commission. During the negotiation process with the Commission, all partners are obliged to sign a letter of declaration. Basically, it's not letter of intent; it's declaration that they simply that I will represent them on behalf of the project to the Commission, and that I'm dealing on behalf of their name with the Commission. So simply, all rules and all auditors' rules and everything else is applied also to them. During the preparation of the final report, they must provide declaration of honor that all copies of accounts, all bank statements, and all invoices provided, they are original and they are used only for this project and for the purpose of that grant and nothing else. So it's about trust, basically. Yeah. In case that auditors will find something, okay, we will declare some invoices as ineligible, but we will have probably I had all kind of audits from Brussels, from Olaf, for that year. So I know that, for example, some 4 or 5 years ago, I was audited by 3 different audits for the 3 different media projects in the same year. Basically, we spent 5 months of the year in audit, and they looked after everything you can imagine. Yeah, so they control also those partners. So I know how it looks like, but I wouldn't like to say that somebody is cheating. I would like to see that everybody is working properly. In case that one of you had a situation that you think that your partner is or might cheat, so simply finish that partnership immediately.
Mm-hmm. But what? So if you are you're not the lead partner.
I see now that question from Barbara.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you estimate, it's not flat rate per month. It's just you can use 24 months times 625 euros. But in guidelines for media is a requirement that you must use man days. Not month, month, it doesn't exist.
Okay. Thank you, Bojan. Hvala, Bojan.